Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. I apologize. I said I was going to be consistent throughout this winter, but life just threw boulder after boulder after me this winter. It's been difficult. I could have tried a little harder, but I think for this winter we're going to be more kind of spontaneous with videos during events like these, not like twice a week like we were hoping to do. I'm just going to make videos when I can, but we've got a major winter storm coming up for much of the US east of the Rockies, and we're going to talk about it in today's video, kind of dive into what the models are showing right now, the changes that may be to come, and just kind of giving you guys a heads up and preparedness plan for your area if you are in a potential impact zone for this winter system. So here's a GFS. We'll just run through a couple models and kind of show you guys the differences and what we know and what we don't know about this system. So here we go. This is going to be run through this weekend. The time up there you see where it says Friday, January 23rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. That's in Central Standard Time. So if you're in Eastern, you add an hour to that. If you're in Mountain, you subtract an hour from that. So we can already begin having precip here, wintry precip across parts of the plains as early as late Friday or even Friday afternoon. And then as we go throughout the overnight hours on Friday into Saturday, the precip field expands as we continue to see these two systems, the Arctic system up here and the Pacific system here. As we see those two systems phase, we're going to have a supply of cold air from the north and a lot of moisture from the south. So these two systems are sort of phasing together very slowly, but they will phase together throughout the weekend, creating a long duration widespread winter storm. And that's why this system is so vast compared to most winter systems that we see. It's not very common that we see a system this widespread, but this unique setup is what is allowing for such a widespread system. So we'll continue throughout time here, and you can see just how vast this is. You have snow up there to the Midwest and freezing rain all the way down to Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. And this is 24 hours later than the frame we showed pause on a minute ago, and it's still snowing in Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas, and there's a lot of sleet that's being projected. Now, I should caution, the radar's not going to look exactly like this. It will change, run by run, and I think this solution may be a bit south. It is south compared to the other guidance, but given how the other guidance has trended so far today, especially from yesterday, GFS could somewhat be a bit of an outlier, but so could the Euro, and we'll look at other models in just a second. But you can see how much of a mess the system is going to create this week, and even into early Monday. I mean, this is Monday morning, this is 7 a.m. Eastern, and there is still snow and ice going on in the Mid-Atlantic. Now, it could be faster, could be slower than this. We could have things end late Sunday night or even persist into the latter part of Monday for the far eastern regions of the country, for the East Coast. So timing is still to be determined, position and track is still to be determined, but based on this GFS solution, no matter what, going to be a widespread system. But the question is here, where is the transition line between heavy snow and sleet and freezing rain, or snow and freezing rain and just cold rain? I think for a lot of it, it's going to vary, especially if you're right on that transition line on a lot of these models right now. But the point is, no matter whether you get freezing rain, sleet, or snow, if you're bound to get one of those precip types for any more than, say, 6 hours, you're in for a high impact event this weekend, without a doubt, unless there's some mesoscale feature that ends up preventing that. But the Euro here, a little less sleet, it's a little stronger with that warm air advection aloft, where there is sort of a, let's just kind of put this out here. So I'm drawing a line. This here is the temperature at the surface, okay, this red line right here. And then as we go into the atmosphere, okay, up is going to be higher up into the atmosphere. And then there's a warm nose that is sitting here at about 850 millibars, so it's about 5,000 feet off the ground. And then it kind of just sort of cools off a little bit as we get higher up to the atmosphere. But the freezing line, okay, where temperatures are at freezing, you see that point's at freezing, but there is a layer of warm air that is above freezing. So that precip that's up here, as it descends, is going to hit that layer of warm air and melt. But then once it reaches the part of the air that is below freezing towards the surface, it's going to refreeze as it makes contact to the ground. That's what makes freezing rain possible. Hope that helped explain what we mean by freezing rain, how that forms. And the shallower that warm nose is, the more you start to transition more to sleet and then eventually snow. For snow, you have to have the entire column of air below freezing. Now, you can have some sleet with a little bit of warmer air above, a layer of warmer air above freezing, but if there's enough of that warm air, that snow, that ice aloft will melt and then freeze on contact once it hits the surface, and that is a mess. It's a disaster. This pink is what you don't want. You don't want any of that pink. But anyways, the Euro is the farthest north solution that we have. It has a surface low inland in Mississippi and Alabama on Sunday morning, and it has ice all the way up into Kentucky and West Virginia, whereas a lot of the other guidance is a little bit further south. Now, the Canadian is a bit similar, has a little more sleet, as that layer of warmer air isn't as strong aloft as it is on the Euro. So there's a little more sleet than freezing rain for areas like Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and into Kentucky. But the main message here is let's not focus too much on the transition zones right now. We'll figure it out as we get closer to the event, as we get some of those more high-res models in. But the main message is that this is going to be a significant winter storm, whether you get snow, sleet, or ice. Of course, if you stay in a cold rain, it's just going to be a cold rain. You'll get a nice soaking rain that, for drought conditions there in the southeast, will be very much welcome. In fact, for areas close to the Gulf Coast, you might see some thunderstorms on Sunday. So, very interesting system that we have in play here. So I want to just go ahead and talk about snow, just kind of the general areas that could see some snow and ice. This is off the NBM. We'll start with the central region. Now, I don't want you to focus too much on these snow totals. Let's not focus too much on the specifics at this time. But many areas, I think the main slug of snow is going to be where right now the NBM has 6 inches or greater. Part of the reason why you're seeing that snow sort of really extend south is because it is being fed with some of that data that is some of that precip that is mostly sleet and freezing rain. It's taking in that data and kind of confusing it with snow. So that's why you're seeing 2 inches in Dallas, 2 inches and 2.5 inches in El Dorado, Arkansas, and even a trace of snow across parts of the farther southern reaches of the wintry precip. So I don't expect there to be 2 inches of snow in El Dorado or almost 3 inches in Dallas. I'm not expecting that, so just use this with caution. But I think where it does snow, where it does stay snow, I think there's going to be a lot of it. I think a foot of snow is possible in some of these areas. Now, of course, we do have to consider duration, banding, mesoscale banding, where there may be heavier bands of snow, and we also have to consider any dry air that may come in. If that high pressure up north, up here in northern states is stronger and or faster, that's going to send some drier air down faster and stronger. That could cut down these snow totals a little bit, which is why we're not being too specific with these snow totals right now. Going to the eastern states here, if we can move over. Very similar story. Of course, I think dry air, any type of dry air or suppression issues won't be as prominent here in the east as it could be in the central or midwestern regions. But we're talking here about a potentially, more than likely, a very high impact system, especially for the East Coast. Now, this isn't anything they haven't seen before. Last time I think we saw a system like this may have been 2016. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's been a while since there has been a widespread 12 to 16 inches of snow for this region. So just be aware of that. This could be, like it will be, a high impact system. The GFS ensemble, a little cut down on those totals, not as high for the eastern states, and of course not as high on the central states. But what I want you to pay attention to is where the general swath of snow is. Now, this can change. It could go a little north, could go a little south, could go very much south or very much north. Although I think if it were to trend either direction, it would trend more south. I think we're getting kind of as far north as this thing can go, given how strong that high pressure is up in the northern states. But I think a very big south shift is becoming less likely. So for you deep south and southeast folks, if you're looking for snow, the chances continue to drop as far as it being more of a snowstorm than just like a cold rain or ice storm. So here's a European ensemble, much higher on snow totals in the GFS, not as high as the NBM. I think the NBM may be a little bit on the liberal side as far as snow totals. But I think the European ensemble is doing a pretty good job. I think it is a little bit far north. I think it is just a bit too far north compared to a lot of the other guidance and what seems a little bit more reasonable right now. But again, the general consensus is many areas across the Central Plains, Southern Plains, into the Ohio Valley or Mid-South and Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, you're bound for a very significant winter storm this weekend. So that's your general idea. Where exactly the heaviest snow sets up is still in question, for sure. But for the general idea of where snow may set up, I think is a pretty solid idea right now. Here's a freezing rain. Now, I want to put this out there because it's very important. How the European ensemble interprets freezing rain is by freezing rain QPF, not ice accumulation. So you may be, panicking, if you're in Arkansas or Louisiana or Mississippi, where you're seeing almost 2 inches of ice. You're not going to see 2 inches of ice accretion or accumulation. This is just the precip that falls as frozen precip, or as rain that is bound to freeze. Accumulations will be much, much, much less than this. I think they could still be quite significant. And if we look at the NBM for surface ice accumulation, this is a bit more realistic, and even this can be overdone, as it's still kind of being fed by that very bullish output from the European and the GFS. So I think half an inch is definitely possible in some areas, but for most of those that get a more sustained freezing rain event, I think definitely a 1/4 inch to isolated half an inch is only possible in many areas. Could it be a more widespread swath of half an inch, especially across the Carolinas and parts of the Mid-South? Definitely, that is very possible. But I think most areas will pick up anywhere between 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, or maybe a little more than that. But even that, once you start getting 1/10 of an inch, you start creating very hazardous or near impossible driving conditions, sporadic power outages, isolated scattered power outages, and even some weak trees that could come down. Once you get to 1/4 of an inch, that's when you have more widespread power outages, impossible driving, and definitely a major impact to infrastructure and even some to life. And over a half inch, that is when you start to see some considerable catastrophic impacts on infrastructure. Obviously, we explained at half an inch, driving becomes impossible, and a crisis can set up with half an inch of ice, especially with the colder air that is bound to set up. It's going to be cold, without a doubt. This is Tuesday morning. This is an ensemble blend. This is not deterministic output. So this is an average of all the data that's being fed into it, like the GFS, the Euro, the Canadian, all of these models that are being fed into it. And you can see, this is not wind chill. This is pure air temperature. And I think this could actually be a little too warm. Not by much, but a little warm, given that it is an ensemble average. But if we're talking these temperatures, many single digits, some areas could see temps below 0 Tuesday morning. And you have a lot of ice across the Carolinas and the Mid-South. You're talking about ice and snow that is not going to melt for days, potentially. Or at least a couple days. I wouldn't say days yet. Temperature forecast is a little flaky after Tuesday. But this is not something that I think we're going to have one day of ice on the roads and the next day it's going to be gone. This is going to be a case where we could have ice on the roads and on infrastructure for at least a couple days for most areas. Some areas could be even longer. So if we have widespread power outages across the area and these temperatures and the ice isn't melting, if you do not have a reliable source of heat, that's going to be a problem. So I encourage you, if you are under the threat of ice, freezing rain, regardless of whether it looks like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch or a 1/10 of an inch, I encourage you that before the event starts, we can start seeing ice accumulation for the Mid-South and Southeast begin as early as Saturday into Sunday. I would encourage Friday night and Saturday, especially for eastern areas on Saturday, go to a friend or family's house that has a reliable source of secondary heat without electricity, like a fireplace. Wherever you can get heat if you were to lose power, or if they were to lose power. I know many homes around here, especially mobile manufactured homes, don't have a fireplace. There are also public shelters that will likely be opening across the region. So seek those options. I do highly recommend you seek those options as far as staying warm during this event. Even if the place you go to, like a friend or family's house, loses power and they have a fireplace or something that can be a source of reliable heat, that will be much better than staying at your place which doesn't have a reliable source of secondary heat without power, and all that. And also, do not assume that the power is just going to stay on, that you'll make it through. Assume the worst case scenario, that the power does go out. And of course, I know some people have pets and it may be tricky to bring pets to some places. I get that. So that can be figured out, but you'll have to work that plan out. But I do encourage you, if you do not have a reliable source of secondary heat, go to a place that does to the best of your ability. So I think we'll have more update videos if this one, if there is enough demand for that. Most of our updates are going to be over on Twitter. That will be in the description below. You can follow us on Twitter with more regular updates on this winter storm. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully this helped you guys get a sense of what's to come. I hope to have some specifics out, hopefully tomorrow, if not as late as early Friday. Give you guys some details on more details on what is to come. So thank you all for watching. I will see you guys in the next one, and stay safe and stay weather aware.